I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, June the 26th. And this came late. This was a late breaking news story on Tuesday night. It'll be all over everywhere by Wednesday morning. But a buddy of mine sent this to me as I was putting the feeder flash together Tuesday night, and I wouldn't have seen it if he hadn't sent it to me. But China has blocked Canadian meat imports. And that is significant. That has not hit the futures market yet. We should definitely see some response in that here Wednesday. But Canada had been sending a fairly sizable amount of pork into China to help them with their African swine fever problems and give them some protein to fill in around. They've been also sending them some beef. Not nearly as much, but sending them some beef, and Canada hasn't had much luck getting China to take beef, kind of similar to the way U.S. has, but with a little more success than us maybe. But China has decided to stop taking that due to a feed additive that was supposedly found in a pork shipment. And they're saying that there was forged certificates saying that meat was free of that additive. Now you think, well, why would Canada do something like that? We don't know for sure. China and Canada have had a little rift here going for quite a while, and it has to do with them detaining each other's citizens. Pretty high up citizen got detained in Canada. And then China detained a couple of Canadians claiming espionage. President Trump has actually promised to help Trudeau amend this a little bit whenever he talks to the China leader here later this week. But regardless of how it happened or why it happened, China has blocked meat shipments from Canada. And that's not to say that they're going to break open and start taking a whole lot more from us. It's something that's happening, and I think that your board will respond to it. It's something that you need to know about. Let's look at the board on Tuesday. June live cattle futures had a great rebound. They were down quite a bit there earlier in the day, and then bounced back and launched. And this could be a key turnaround. All of your technical analysts, people that really watch that, have been saying that there's signals, reports coming out that are saying it's time to have a turnaround on this cattle board. We have yet to really see it, but this could have been a significant turnaround Tuesday, kind of late in the session before close, but we saw your live cattle futures come up all of a sudden nearby, and a big recovery in your feeder cattle futures too, but they still finished lower on the day. But June live cattle futures up 82 cents to end the day at 107.75. August was also up 82 cents at 103 1/4. Going down off out front, it wasn't as big a gains though on your live cattle futures, and they were near steady. August feeder cattle down 45 cents, but they were down more than that earlier in the day, ending at 131.35. September down 47 at 131.87. Your out fronts on your feeder cattle were not down hardly at all, and they were about steady. So that's kind of what we saw in that. We'll see if that's a key turnaround on Tuesday here, but it may take more than that to really to springboard this futures market. But with this China deal, having this little rub with Canada, everybody thinks that Trump is the only one that ever ticks any other countries off. No, every country has its own problems with dealing with trade and getting along and relations and different things. And Trudeau is having some problems with China, and they try to hit you right in the pocketbook, similar to the sanctions that we put on other countries whenever we feel like they've done us wrong. But that's just the way it goes, guys. But your hogs were up pretty good. That was blamed, or that lent support to your cattle futures. Corn and beans didn't do a whole lot. Corn up a little and beans down marginally, but not too much. Your fat cattle trade, just a little bit, started to break loose. Probably a little more trade than what we see confirmed heard more people talking about 180 swirling around in the northern plains. But as far as confirmed sales, Iowa 1,600 head at 180 and had some live sales quoted at 108. Not sure if that was for 4th of July week or the week after or what it was for. It's kind of hard to tell on these things. But 108 keeps swirling around, and we'd like to not establish our market there. We'd like to keep it at 110 or maybe go back the other direction. Wouldn't that be something? But Nebraska 1,200 head at $180 dress, but we haven't seen anything at all in the southern plains to speak of, and not really a whole lot there in the northern plains, but there is some sales there. And like I said, there was rumors of more of that going on than what we saw confirmed. But let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. And I've told you guys for the last couple of weeks, when these green yearlings come to town, the competition on them will be so much that it will push the market. It will push the cash market. I do believe that eventually we'll have to pull your futures market with it. It has to if they work together. But we're talking about late June here, and we've got an August feeder cattle for our spot month on the futures, so it's got a little bit of time to kind of put off this cash market rally. But I tell you what, we are seeing a rally on these green yearlings, and guys want them. They are going after them. They're ignoring the board. We're seeing big sales, big strings of yearlings coming off grass, and just lighten up the scoreboards at all your sale barns. But real-time index on Cattle Market Central late in the day on Tuesday, sitting at 131.52. That's up 18 cents, and a lot of big sales around. We're starting to see some Midwest sales and some Northern Plains sales that are holding that market up there, but still a lot of Southern Plains markets too, but they're higher also. But you see how that RTI compares to the latest CME index, which was 131.46. 6 cents difference, guys, and a whole lot easier to put together, and it's automated. But let's look at your big sales. Ozarks Regional Stockyards, West Plains, Missouri. That's South Central Missouri, Thor Rock to Arkansas, guys. But look at some of these quotes. 4,200 head there at West Plains. They always have big sales. Feeder cattle there, steady to $4 higher, steers and heifers. Their calves were not as active. They didn't have as many of those, and not the featured consignments of calves. They were talking more about the yearlings. But calves $3 to $8 lower. Spots 12 lower on some steer calves, guys. But just guys not as actively putting those together. But look at one big consignment that was put together there. 431 head of black and black baldy heifers. Mostly, they did have one load there kind of out of the 6 that was colored up pretty good, but 431 head of them, averaged 718 pounds at 129.75. That's in South Central Missouri Extreme. Now another sale over there in southeastern Kansas, Fredonia Livestock Auction. I talk about them all the time. They had a big special on there, had a lot of cattle through the ring, and had a big video just of their own there at Fredonia. But man, look at this market report out of Fredonia. That it's not reported anywhere else, guys. This is the only place you'll see it, here on the feeder flash and on Cattle Market Central. But let's look at some of these featured weights of steers. 241 head of 7-weight steers, averaged 738 pounds, with a weighted average price of $147.06. 307 head of 8-weight steers, averaged 843 at $136.46 on the weighted average, with the weighted average weight nearly 8.5. I tell you what, those are big prices, guys. 251 head of 9-weight steers, averaged 928 at $128.19. Okay, you thought the steers sold good. I'm just going to go to the biggest drag that they had, and that was some spayed heifers, guys. Some spayed heifers from the Hahn Ranch at Fall River, Kansas, right there. 402 head of them, weighed 780 pounds at $140.75. If you guys aren't familiar with spayed heifers, they pull the ovaries on those. It keeps them from cycling. That keeps cattle from gaining. Those cattle gain better on grass, and then they feed like a steer. So, you know, if those cattle had have been steers, they might have brought a buck or two more, maybe not, but spayed heifers are as good as steers. But that is a big quote out of Fredonia, Kansas. On top of all those cattle that you saw on that market report coming through the ring, they had another 36 pot loads on their own Fredonia video there. And I tell you what, it was active there, and they had the buying power in Fredonia, Kansas. Another big sale, extreme north central Missouri, Unionville Livestock Market. Kurt Sporleder and family there, they had their big special. They have it this time of the year. We're starting to get into what they call the barbecue specials. They give a big barbecue lunch so all the Amish and Mennonite can come in, get their bellies full, and then leave, and then the rest of the people can come in and do business. But Unionville special there, they had a lot of good cattle there, a lot of good loads of yearlings and things there. Had some fall-born calves there too, but mostly yearlings. They had my buddy Russell Sleep, the world champion livestock auctioneer there, as a special guest selling the cattle, and had quite a show there. But guess whose cattle were at Unionville? You know, Rockin' R's backgrounded cattle right there. And I tell you what, they are doing such a good job. And whatever they're feeding, you need to get a hold of those guys, because they are backgrounding these cattle to where they really feed well, and it's showing up on the market on those cattle. They top the market in all of the Midwest every time they bring them in. They've been selling them there at Unionville, and I tell you what, those guys just have their mouths watering for them, because evidently they feed so well. However, these guys are backgrounded them, and they're doing it right. But they had 240 head of 895-pound steers sold in load lots like that, but 4 load lots there, but I'm giving you the total. 240 head weighed 895 pounds on the average, Rockin' R's at 134.85. That's your feeder flash for Wednesday.